Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm bringing a review for the brand new Marvel Legends Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure wave, Darwin. Just like with Siryn, I'm reviewing these toys as I get them, which means they're being reviewed out of order. Darwin is actually the second to last figure in this wave. Not that it really matters all that much, but it's really throwing off my feng shui here with the reviews. I don't like doing stuff out of order. I'm very meticulous. But we're going to keep chugging along and reviewing these guys as they come in, so that way we can go ahead and, get this whole wave covered, cover the Build-A-Figure piece, and just be timely at getting a good look at the wave as a whole. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Darwin's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll get a quick look at his Build-A-Figure piece, and we'll see Darwin himself, we'll check out his posability, his accessories. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So Darwin comes in your standard Marvel Legends packaging. You get your Bonebreaker call out up here. You get your X-Men symbol up top. Right here you get the very 90s style X-Men logo. You get the character's name, Darwin. And then inside the packaging, you can see the character off to the right. He comes packaged with closed fists, but he has alternate open hands that you can attach to him. And then he comes with the right half of Bonebreaker's little tank bottom there. Turn to the side, we get some nice artwork of Darwin, looking, ready for combat or surprised or something. His eerie, glowing eyes. And then we get the same artwork on the back, just flipped around. We get his name, and then we get some flavor text. And that reads, "True to his name, Darwin has the power to adapt against any threat, be it searing volcanic heat or the cold vacuum of space." I think they're really underselling his abilities. This guy is nigh unkillable because he can adapt to anything. Which is why I feel they did him really, really dirty in that X-Men First Class movie. They killed off Darwin way too easily. And it's funny, I get the idea of wanting to kill off a main character just to kind of raise the stakes, but you picked, the most unkillable character to kill off, and they're just like, meh. We're just gonna nerf this guy just to really, make a statement here. All right, down here we get a render of Bonebreaker, and then we get our cross-sells for the wave. We get Wolverine, we get Siryn, who I've already reviewed. We get Havoc, Vulcan, Maggot, Darwin here, and then Sabretooth. So this is a very X-Men-centric wave, which, as a massive X-Men fan, I do not mind at all. Because I grew up with the X-Men, I love the X-Men. So if they want to keep making X-Men-based waves, I'll keep eating it up. I love this stuff. So yeah, there's the packaging. Let's go ahead now and open it up. So here's our figure out of the box, and the first thing we're going to do is take a look at this Build-A-Figure piece, and it is half of a tank. And just like the first half that we saw with Siryn, it's incredibly detailed, down to lots of surface detailing with the vent, the diamond plate here, you got headlights, you get all these cracks and gouges and scrapes and stuff. You got some silver paint meant to look like the bare metal underneath. What's really cool, so he has this battering ram looking thing right here. And then he also has this little gun barrel that actually does articulate on a little ball joint, so that's really neat. And of course it's got the rubberized treads, and it's just a really cool piece overall. One thing I'm starting to realize about the Build-A-Figure pieces, I think the reason they're so desirable is because a lot of the time they're made up of all, or at least mostly all new tooling. So they can really put in a lot of effort to customize them and make them very, very unique to that character. They'll get all sorts of special sculpting and everything. Whereas with a figure like Darwin here, we can already see he's made from a very generic male body type. This is a buck that's been used time and time again, at least as far as the actual outfit itself. So, they realize with the, mass release figures that they don't have to do a whole lot, unless it's, an MCU-based figure or something. They basically just slap a new head on there, sometimes give him new hands. You can see Darwin's got some big old hands here, which I think are unique to him, maybe. And then make something like a belt to put around his waist. And that's really all they have to do because of the, rather generic nature of comic book superheroes. So I think I'm starting to get why the BAFs are so appealing. It's just, they're such unique, interesting pieces, and it really allows the designers to go just nuts with creativity. But I don't want to downplay Darwin here. He's still very cool. He has this very unique, bug-eyed, almost ET-like head sculpt. It's on a ball joint with a hinge, so great articulation there. He has butterfly joints on the chest, though you don't get a lot of movement out of them. I don't know if it's just like a mold degradation thing, but like there's not a lot of range on these. He does have universal shoulders, and a bicep swivel, double bend elbows, and universal wrist. He has an ab crunch that can extend back a little bit. He's got a full waist swivel. He's got his universal hips, thigh swivel, double bend knees, and ankle rock and rotation. So your standard fare, about what you expect. I mean, there is, a plus side to reusing Common Buck is that if you reuse one that's got good articulation, all the figures that use it will have good articulation. So there's always that. Right, so we see that he comes packaged with closed fists. They are pretty cool looking, but because they're clenched so tightly, it really undersells just how big his hands are. So what we're going to do is unplug these and attach these open hands that look like they're kind of reaching out for something. And then you can see his fingers fully stretched out. And you can see that Darwin has a very, I'm going to say like tree frog-like appearance. Between, the big white eyes and these really big old fingers, he definitely reminds me of some sort of frog-like creature. And that does help make him unique amongst his X-Men allies. I do personally wish that there had been some sort of parts or accessories or something to really show off Darwin's adaptive nature. Because right now, you can tell, okay, well, he looks really interesting, but what does he do? And if you're somebody who's not familiar with the character, you just see this on a shelf, you're not going to have any idea what his power is. And it's kind of the same issue we had with Siryn here from this wave. You don't really get a hint of what she does. So what would have been really cool is if there had been some sort of alternate piece, whether that's a hand or a head or something, to show his skin changing into something else. Some sort of like a half and half effect where he's slowly morphing into, being made of ice or steel or, one of his many abilities that just show him morphing into some other substance to make himself invulnerable. So, that's maybe my big criticism with this toy. It really doesn't go out of its way to show you who Darwin really is. Because right now, he really just looks like an alien. Like, if you were not familiar with this character and you walk by this and you just saw it on a shelf, especially if it's not on a Marvel, it's just like by itself, you may not even realize it's an X-Man. You might just think it's some generic alien creature from like a sci-fi show. So I think one of the issues with this wave is that they're really underselling just what the character's abilities are. And I get, there's budget involved, but I feel there needs to be an effort to convey some personality in these figures, and I'm not getting that vibe with this guy. Now here's a quick little group chat with Darwin's wave mate and his teammate on the X-Men, Siryn. And Siryn is in a very similar boat to Darwin. They both end up coming with halves of the tank portion of Bonebreaker. They both have an optional pair of hands, and then they both lack any meaningful way to convey their abilities. Which is something that really is a shame because they're good looking toys. Like, they both make very good use of their sculpts and everything, and they're very posable and have a really good shelf presence. But they also come off as a little bit generic, and I really hate that because you really want to be able to get an idea of what these characters do, especially if you're going to make some sort of nice display, some sort of battle scene. Well, what battle scene are you going to have? You're going to have Darwin, reaching for something? It's not going to show what he does. Or Siryn's standing there? She doesn't even have a screaming face, so it's like, nah, I feel like you guys aren't really putting your priorities forward, the best way you can. But at the same time, I can't pretend that this is anything new. There are plenty of figures out there, especially when it comes to X-Men figures, where they don't really include anything that tips you off to what their whole deal is, what their power is. Sometimes they do. Sometimes you get great energy effects, or you get, like Wolverine with his claws, or, sometimes their mutations are a little more apparent. Somebody like Beast, like he's a big blue agile beast. That's like his whole thing. But then when you get these very human-looking mutants, or mutants whose appearances don't really have anything to do with their powers, I feel that's when the toy falls a little flat because they just come off as like just some generic person in spandex. So, yeah, good figures, nothing wrong with them, but they could have been a lot more. Now here's a shot where I do what Hasbro won't and use accessories to show off Darwin's powers. So you can see I have one of his hands turning to metal, I got a leg turning to flame over here, and then I have the other hand, channeling or turning into electricity. And, something like this. And, it doesn't have to be all three, because obviously that's a lot of, accessories to have to attach to this guy. But, even one of them, just something to really show what Darwin does would have made this a much better toy. Luckily, if you are a big-time Marvel collector and you have a lot of other figures and spare parts, you can come up with something like this if you want to, customize him for your shelf. But, out of package, he really doesn't do anything. So you're kind of left holding the bag on footing the bill to buy other figures so that you can customize your Darwin and actually make him look like he has adaptive powers. And it really is a shame because, you can come up with some pretty good stuff, but it's entirely on you, the consumer, to buy other toys so that you can do so. And this completes our look at Marvel Legends Darwin. This is a fine figure. There's definitely nothing wrong with him. He's got great posability, he's got good tolerances, he does have a really cool head sculpt, and I like his big goofy hands, but he's also a very, very plain figure. So he's one of the least exciting ones to be released in this wave. Even Siryn has certain stylistic cues that just kind of help set her apart from everyone else. Darwin's just a guy in purple spandex, and again, just a little bit of, effect parts or swappable hands that have some sort of elemental hue to them or something would have gone a long way in establishing this guy. But, the budget monster struck again, and this guy is left just being very vanilla. Just no nicer way to say it. He's totally fine if you just want a Darwin that just kind of stands there and doesn't really do much of anything. But for, good action scenes, things like that, great display pieces, he's going to feel very uninspired. He's just going to be a guy kind of standing in the background, I don't hold his hand out no, wait. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to fully recommend him. If you just need a Darwin figure, that's fine. I think this is the first one we've had, right? So, he's good for that. But if you want something a little more exciting, this may not feel worth, the price of admission. It does come with a cool Build-A-Figure piece, but, you can't always allow yourself to be lured in by that, right? Because that's kind of how they get you. You're like, oh, well, this figure's kind of lame compared to the others. Oh, but he has that bath piece I need. And that's really how they get you to buy stuff you wouldn't otherwise buy. It's a brilliant marketing tactic, but, it can be a little seedy at times. So, yeah, Darwin's fine. If you need a Darwin, you'll be very happy with this. You'll have one for your shelf. But if you're looking for a figure that's, particularly fun or exciting, you might want to give this guy a pass because he really doesn't do much of anything. Of course, this is just how I feel about this toy. So now I want to know what you all think of Darwin. Am I being too harsh on this guy? Do you think he's fine the way he is and you don't really care about, the effects and the superpowers? Or do you not like this? Do you think, kind of like what I was saying, that he just doesn't really come with enough? Or do you not care about the character? He is one of the more obscure X-Men out there. Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Marvel Legends Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure Wave, Darwin. And with all that said, I will see you next time.